A man in his late 70s walked into my clinic, his gaze steady but his voice carrying the weight of something unspoken. He leaned forward and admitted, "I had no idea I was slowly harming myself." Like so many others, he had spent years engaging in a private habit without ever realizing the subtle toll it was taking. And he's far from alone. I'm Dr. Mohit Kara, a urologist and men's health specialist with over 30 years of experience helping older men safeguard their energy, intimacy, and self-respect. I want to share with you what most physicians never address openly. Once you pass 60, the way your body responds to self-pleasure changes. If you don't adjust, those changes can quietly affect your physical health, your emotional well-being, and even your sense of manhood. You've likely heard it's natural, harmless, even beneficial, but the truth is, the method matters more than most people realize. In this presentation, I'm going to reveal 5 powerful insights about masturbation that older men often wish they had learned decades earlier, knowledge that can help maintain circulation, protect the prostate, and restore confidence. Stay with me until the last point, because it could transform the way you age, connect, and live in the years ahead. This is a conversation long overdue, but never too late to have. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss more age-specific, no-nonsense health advice created for men like you. And if what I'm saying resonates, drop a 1 in the comments to let me know you're here. If not, type 0. Your feedback helps guide what I share next. Let's start with a hidden truth that has silently affected countless men without their awareness. Porn may be quietly eroding your natural sexual reflexes, altering how your body and mind respond to real intimacy. Secret 1: porn may be destroying your sexual reflexes without you knowing it. One quiet afternoon, I sat across from Daniel, a retired teacher in his early 70s. His hands rested loosely on his lap, but there was a heaviness in his tone when he confessed, "I still try to enjoy myself, but it feels empty, like my body is going through the motions without me." For years, he had ended his nights the same way, relying on online videos for stimulation. What started as a harmless distraction had slowly dulled his ability to connect with real touch and genuine intimacy. He assumed the change was just age creeping in, but as we spoke, it became clear his brain had been rewired by the constant surge of artificial stimulation. When you repeatedly consume high-intensity erotic material, your brain floods with dopamine, the chemical that fuels desire and reward. Over time, the mind begins to crave only those extreme triggers, leaving natural, slower, more subtle forms of intimacy feeling muted. Daniel hadn't noticed it happening. It felt comforting at first, even soothing, until one day he realized he was more excited by a screen than by human closeness. His imagination had faded, and his body felt strangely disconnected from his own emotions. He compared it to standing in a brightly lit hallway with all the doors locked. He could see, but he couldn't enter. Through gradual changes, patience, and replacing old habits with mindful touch, Daniel began to reclaim what he thought was gone forever. Within a few weeks, sensation returned, his creativity and intimacy revived, and he felt present in his own body again. If he had started earlier, he could have avoided years of numbness. But recovery is always possible, even after decades of habit. And that leads us to the next truth, one that looks beyond the physical act itself. Because self-pleasure, especially later in life, is not just about the body. Masturbation isn't purely sexual, it is deeply emotional and neurological, shaping how you feel, think, and connect with yourself. Secret 2: masturbation isn't just sexual, it's emotional and neurological. A few months ago, I met Leonard, a former factory foreman in his early 70s. He came in for what he called a checkup for the mind as much as the body. Sitting across from me, he sighed and admitted, "It's like I can't feel anything anymore. Not just in the bedroom, anywhere in my life." Leonard's problem wasn't simply physical. As we spoke, I learned he had been masturbating almost every night for years, not because of strong desire, but because it had become his way of easing himself into sleep and keeping loneliness at bay. He hadn't noticed how the act had shifted from a source of connection with himself into a quiet coping mechanism. This is something I wish more men understood. After 60, self-pleasure is not only about the body, it is linked to your brain, your emotions, and your nervous system. An orgasm releases dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, powerful chemicals that can improve sleep, lift mood, and calm anxiety. For men living alone, it can offer a sense of peace and grounding. But when it becomes routine without awareness, the meaning fades. Leonard told me the habit felt like an empty ritual. His body moved, but his mind and heart were absent. We grew up believing we had to be tough, to keep our emotions hidden, to treat vulnerability as weakness. For many men, the only time they truly let go is in the privacy of self-touch. That moment becomes more than physical, it becomes survival. The real danger is not in the act itself, but in letting it become mindless. If you use it only to pass time or to distract yourself from feelings you cannot name, you slowly lose your ability to connect with yourself on a deeper level. But approached with intention and presence, it can be healing, offering both emotional clarity and neurological health. And at this stage in life, that matters more than ever. Which brings us to the next truth, because while some men overuse self-pleasure without thought, others abandon it entirely. And that choice can quietly change the body in ways they never expected. The use it or lose it rule is real, but it is often misunderstood. Secret 3: the use it or lose it rule is real but misunderstood. I once met Thomas, a 71-year-old former carpenter who had recently rekindled a romance with an old friend from his youth. When he came in for his appointment, there was no excitement in his eyes, only a quiet embarrassment. "I finally have someone in my life again," he said softly, "but my body just won't cooperate." He feared the worst, thinking age had closed the door on that part of his life forever. What Thomas didn't realize, and what so many older men never hear, is that his problem wasn't true dysfunction, it was the result of neglect. Sexual function is not solely dictated by age, it is deeply connected to regular activity. Just as unused muscles weaken over time, the tissues and blood vessels in the penis depend on consistent use to stay responsive. Without stimulation, nerves become less sensitive, elasticity fades, and circulation slows. These changes happen gradually and quietly, often going unnoticed until they are firmly in place. Thomas had gone years without any sexual activity, not because of disinterest in intimacy, but because he assumed it no longer mattered. Life's demands and personal loss had dimmed his desire, and he had simply stopped trying. Inside, his body adapted to the lack of stimulation, closing pathways that could have stayed open with just a little attention. The good news is that it wasn't permanent. With slow, intentional re-engagement, no pressure, just gentle encouragement, his body began to respond again. Sensation returned little by little, and with it came a renewed sense of self-confidence. Many older men believe that without a partner, there's no reason to maintain sexual health. This belief is not only untrue, it can cause real harm. Masturbation and sexual activity at this stage of life are not solely about pleasure, they are about keeping the body systems active, maintaining healthy tissue, and preserving the ability to respond. It is a physical reminder that you still matter, and your body still wants to participate in life if you give it the chance. But if ignoring your sexual health can cause silent damage, there's another challenge worth addressing. What if, instead of losing responsiveness, the way you engage sexually is actually reshaping your body's expectations in the wrong way? That leads us to the next truth, one that looks at performance in a completely different light. Your erection is no longer the whole story, and that's okay. Secret 4: your erection is no longer the whole story, and that's okay. I once treated Martin, a 69-year-old retired pilot, who came into my office wearing a polite smile that didn't match the concern in his eyes. After a moment of hesitation, he admitted, "I can't perform the way I used to." "Does that mean I'm finished as a man?" His words carried a familiar weight. I've heard that same quiet fear from countless men who arrive unsettled by changes they never expected. They notice that erections aren't as firm, as quick, or as reliable as they once were, and they assume their sexuality has reached its end. But here's what I wish every man past 60 understood. This is not failure, it is transition. The body shifts with time. Blood moves more slowly, hormone levels ebb and flow, nerves take a little longer to respond. What once seemed effortless now calls for patience and intention. None of this means your sexuality is broken. In fact, intimacy can deepen when you stop measuring it solely by physical rigidity. Many of us were raised in a culture that worshipped performance and treated masculinity as an endurance test. No one told you that pleasure and connection could still thrive without a perfect erection. The truth is, orgasm and erection are separate experiences. You can still find profound release, closeness, and satisfaction even if your body responds differently than it did at 25. Too many men carry the false belief that they've lost something vital, when in reality it has only changed shape. What matters now is presence over pressure, connection over competition. Letting go of old benchmarks opens the door to a new kind of intimacy, one built on patience, curiosity, and respect for your body as it is today. I have seen men reclaim joy and confidence once they understood this. They realized they were still whole, still capable of pleasure, and still deserving of it. And that brings us to a truth that ties all of this together. Because intimacy in later life is not just about what your body can do, it can be a source of emotional grounding, physical health, and self-respect. Masturbation can be a lifeline, not a liability. Secret 5: Masturbation can be a lifeline, not a liability. During a follow-up visit, I met Gerald, a 74-year-old widower with a calm voice and a gentle manner. As we wrapped up his exam, he paused, looking almost unsure if he should continue. Finally, he asked, "Is it really all right for someone my age to still touch himself?" It was not the rarity of the question that struck me, it was the quiet shame behind it. I've heard the same uncertainty from many older men, as though admitting to self-pleasure was confessing to a wrongdoing. What Gerald did not realize, and what I wish more men understood, is that masturbation in later life is not something to hide. In fact, it can be one of the most important forms of self-care available to you. When approached with awareness and presence, it supports far more than sexual release. It promotes healthy blood flow to the pelvic region, helps the prostate function by clearing built-up fluids, lowers anxiety, improves mood, and enhances sleep through the release of calming neurochemicals. But the benefits go beyond the physical. Self-pleasure preserves your connection to desire, to your sense of self, and to the part of you that still wants to feel engaged with life. After Gerald's wife passed away, he stopped all sexual activity. He told himself that chapter had ended, and for nearly a decade, he denied himself even the smallest act of intimacy. "I thought it would be inappropriate," he said quietly. "I didn't think it was something a man my age should do." This belief is a reflection of a culture that often teaches older men to fade into the background, to stop feeling, to go silent. But desire does not vanish, it only softens. If ignored, it transforms into isolation. When Gerald began to reconnect with his body, slowly and without pressure, something shifted. His mood brightened, his sleep improved, and a spark returned to his eyes. He wasn't chasing lost youth, he was reclaiming a sense of dignity and self-worth. In later years, masturbation can be more than a physical act. It can be a homecoming, a quiet affirmation that says, "I still matter." 5 Masturbation secrets older men wish they had learned sooner. Reaching this point means more than simply hearing my words, it means you have had the courage to explore a subject many men your age were never given permission to discuss. That willingness alone is a sign of strength, not the kind measured in denial, but the kind built on clarity and acceptance. These 5 insights are not just medical guidelines. They are the distilled lessons from real experiences, regrets, and awakenings of men who wish they had known the truth much earlier in life. We began by challenging the old belief that manhood is defined by the quality of an erection. Many have spent years in silent worry, never realizing that pleasure and intimacy can remain vibrant even when the body responds differently. We looked at how self-pleasure is not solely physical, it is emotional and neurological, an act that, when practiced with awareness, can center you and connect you more deeply to yourself. We uncovered how neglect is far from harmless. Long periods without sexual activity can lead the body to forget what it once did naturally, but with patience and consistent engagement, those pathways can awaken again. We examined the hidden cost of pornography, how it can quietly rewire your brain and dampen your natural response to genuine human connection. And finally, we arrived at a truth that many never hear, that masturbation in later life is not a cause for shame. Done with presence and respect for yourself, it can be a lifeline, a way to keep your identity, your body, and your sense of vitality alive. Over the years, I have spoken to countless men in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s who believed their sexual life was behind them. They thought there was nothing left to feel, nothing left to give. Yet decades in this field have shown me that desire never truly disappears. It may grow quieter, it may take a new shape, but it is always there. When you meet your body where it is today rather than clinging to what it used to be, you discover something profound. You are still a man, still whole, and still deserving of pleasure and connection. Wherever you are in your journey, whether alone, in a relationship, active, or rediscovering yourself, I hope these 5 truths help you reclaim what was never truly lost. Your age is not a barrier to feeling, touching, or healing. In fact, it may be the very reason to begin again right now. If any part of this message resonated with you, I encourage you to share your thoughts. Let me know which of these truths struck the deepest chord. And if you want to continue learning and restoring your health with dignity, stay connected. I offer straightforward, practical advice designed for men over 60 because your story still matters. You are not invisible. You are not finished. There is more life, more connection, and more vitality ahead if you choose to reach for it. If this message brings someone to mind, pass it along. A single honest conversation can change a life. Let's keep breaking the silence together. You deserve truth, you deserve understanding, and above all, you deserve to feel alive again.